This episode of The Pitch has been brought to you by White Labs The Vault for Homebrewers, exclusive, limited release strains with pre-ordering right at your fingertips. Hey y'all, I'm Eric.
And I'm Jacob.
And we're here today at Home Brew Mart by Ballast Point, the very first place to carry White Labs yeast over 25 years ago. Come in and let's check it out.
Hey guys, so today I'm here with Jim from Ballast Point Home Brew Mart. He's going to show us around a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about the store?
Birthplace of Ballast Point Brewing Company. Started as a homebrew store in 1992. In this space consecutively for 28 years. The farther you are in the store this way, the farther you are back in time. Ballast Point started here in 96. Operated, like I say, continuously throughout all that. I don't know how many large-scale breweries start out as a homebrew store and then keep it the entire time.
So you said you guys started as a brewery, and I saw when we walked in that you have an awesome tasting room back here, so maybe tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so 4 years into Home Brew Mart, did start the brewery, and then not long after that, our original founder, Jack White, not the guitar player, he had gone to Napa on a trip with family and friends, liked the tasting room setup, and wanted to know why, as a producer, he couldn't also have a tasting room. And so I actually had to petition the state. To my knowledge, Home Brew Mart's the first brewery in the state of California to have a standalone tasting room within food. The rules were super restrictive. I had to come in and surrender my ID to be held on a clipboard so they could keep track of my tasters. Only have tasters for $1 a piece, and couldn't try the same thing twice because that would make it drinking, so we were only tasting. About 5 years ago, we opened a new tasting room. We moved up from the 12 taps that started it all to 38 taps. Try to keep a wide variety of stuff flowing on those, both from parent location in Miramar and then also stuff from our one-barrel brew house back in the classroom.
Oh, what? Jason Carlson, homebrew advisor here at Home Brew Mart, San Diego, California.
My name is Josue Valadez, I'm homebrew advisor, and I've been here for over 3 years now.
My name is Garrett Lordson. I'm the assistant manager here at Home Brew Mart. Worked here for 7 years.
Homebrewing, it's not as difficult as it seems. A lot of people might be thrown off by seeing kettles and shiny stuff or just seeing the equipment on the back. Not as hard. If any person with a pretty basic knowledge of cooking could get away with making beer. Homebrewing, it's pretty inclusive. It doesn't put parameters on how knowledgeable you need to be in the topic. You could just follow instructions and you get beer. Or you could go into the deep science of water chemistry and yeast and all that stuff. But again, it's pretty inclusive for everyone, for the people who just want to take it as a hobby or actually want to make a career out of it, which is pretty cool.
So we are obviously here in the malt section of the homebrew store. I'm taking a look at these bins right here. They all say Crystal with a different number and L. And so if it's my first time coming in here as a new homebrewer, can you kind of explain to me the importance behind the name here?
These in particular are all from the malts for Breeze, which is in Wisconsin, which is where I'm from, no big deal. And here the Crystal Caramel 40 designation, or Crystal Caramel 20. Crystal malts are not contributing fermentable sugars, but rather characteristics of the beer. So generally when you're in the malt area here in the store, the stuff on the top shelves are what we call specialty malts, which influence the characteristic of the finished product, rather than providing the sugar that will become the alcohol in the beer and all that sort of thing. They all end with this kind of number designation. The crystal malts here, we have 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 120 L. The L stands for Lovabond, which is a measure of how dark the grain has been toasted and how much color it'll contribute to the finished product. These all contribute, you know, this like caramel red kind of a color, and also a little bit of caramelization flavor from like the caramelization of the sugars in the roasting process. The higher the number of Lovabond, the darker color will be contributed by the grain of the beer.
You would ideally use a slightly less amount of this grain compared to maybe like your base malt or something like that. No impact of sugar and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are certain of these kind of converted grains, or what we call dextrin malts, that can comprise a larger percentage of the grain bill if you're going for like a fuller bodied beer with lower alcohol and stuff like that. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it with the crystal malts, because as you increase the amount, you'll also be increasing that amount of like caramel flavor and all that sort of thing that comes along, which will start to move you out of what is beer.
Right. So looking down here, I'm seeing, we have giant bins of things like corn and rice, which are obviously in rye, not barley.
Right.
And we know these to be ingredients of your macro lagers, which sometimes have a negative connotation when talking about craft beer. So could you maybe tell me a little bit about how these are used even in homebrewing and craft styles?
Yeah, absolutely. This aisle generally we consider the floor anyway, the adjunct aisle. As you mentioned, we've got rye, corn, rice, rye again, we've got some wheat, flaked wheat over here.
Right.
While rice gets a bad rap because of its association to American light lagers, in the macro field, we all know about wheat beers like Hefeweizen, and that a lot of the body and characteristic comes from that. It doesn't really matter what we're using, it's what we intend for the finished product.
Exactly.
Rye, for example, adds a little bit of this like spice note, which is nice even in lighter colored beers. And then we have the flaked ingredients generally provide more body and head retention to a beer. All this stuff is just a part and parcel within the overall recipe to affect the desired result. Flaked rice can do some of that body and head retention. It does still have some fermentable sugar that's coming along with it. When you have more fermentable sugar without more of like the barley malt character, you end up with a lighter, drier, crisper end product. And to what extent you use it is determined by what you want the end product to be. Right. So a little bit of rice in double IPA might make it more lighter on the palate, more palatable than just dumping in more and more base malt.
The ingredient isn't necessarily a lower quality. The brewers are using it for a specific intention to produce a certain style or attribute when receiving the beer.
Couldn't have said it better myself or used just few words.
WLP 029, I believe, German Ale Kolsch yeast. Absolutely phenomenal yeast. It's one of my favorite go-tos for customers. We get a lot of customers who come in here, but they want to brew something very light and tasty, which is a little difficult to do in San Diego heat. And often I'm turning to my own personal favorite, which is the Kolsch yeast, which gets you those really clean characteristics with some slight fruity ale notes in there, but nothing too overbearing. It's the easiest to work with. I've never made a bad beer with it. It's phenomenal yeast.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Right now I've been using the Abbey ale yeast. I also like the 007, the dry English ale yeast. The 007, the James Bond, is just a classic one. So
I would say that particular question would definitely be defined by the time of the year. But my favorite in particular to work with, it's California yeast, the 001 Home Brew Mart yeast at some point. What I love about it is that it could be pretty versatile. You could do blondes, you could do stouts, you could do IPAs. It's a yeast that by itself doesn't give you a lot of characteristics, which is what I love about it.
So in the first episode of The Pitch, we used some Pilsner DME, and I was wondering if you could explain to us a little bit about the difference between all grain brewing and extract brewing, its uses, and why some brewers may prefer to do this instead of using all grain.
Extract brewing essentially is like intro to brewing. Much less steps, much less equipment. Actually, each one of these bags represents a fair amount of work that's already been done for you. This is the stuff that we use in all of our homebrew kits that we pack here, pre-packaged recipes that we have for people. And from all the grains, we extract fermentable sugars that turn into alcohol in the brew and all that sort of thing. All that is a labor and time-intensive process. Again, our maltsters like Breeze have cooked out a lot of that sugar, dehydrated it for us, so that all we have to do is reconstitute for use in the beer. It saves so much time and space, so those are some pluses. Of course, because it's already been cooked down for you and dehydrated in that process, some of the sugars are caramelized, and you end up with a product that gives you a little bit more body, a little bit of residual sweetness at the end of the beer. Generally, as people progress in their brewing, they reach a point where they strive for the cleanest, clearest possible product, where they want everything to be just so. And in order to twist and turn all those dials, you really need to be able to craft a recipe from scratch, to be able to adjust things to get the desired result based on the one that wasn't as desirable. And so that's kind of where people start to push into from simple extract brewing to adding steeping grains, and maybe moving into brewing the bag setup or something like that as they amass their equipment. Eventually can move to all grain brewing, crafting your own recipes and all that sort of thing.
In your opinion, would you say though that you could still make a high quality beer using just extract as the malt?
Absolutely. I wouldn't try to make an American light lager just because I don't think that it's conducive to it. In the world of beer, there are so many beers that can be made indistinguishable no matter what you use. A lot of it comes down to things like sanitation, not exposing fermented beer to oxygen, things that are common pitfalls in home brewing, not things that are necessarily attributable to one ingredient or another.
One, I always say you got to put some love into it. So you got to put some love into the beer. You got to really like what you do. Start from there. Really kind of balance out your ingredients, your malt profile, and your hop profile. That is going to take a little bit of time. It's not like something that's going to come out right away. You're going to get a few beers under your belt and brew some other recipes and see what you like out of those. You don't need to overcomplicate things. That's where it gets all messy. But just get some good ingredients, get a nice good recipe, brew it over and over again until you can make it the same way every time. That comes with practice. That comes with just repetition and knowing your equipment and knowing your ingredients.
So you guys have been selling White Labs yeast for what, 25 years now. Can you tell us a little bit about how that relationship got started back in 1995?
Home Brew Mart opened in '92, and so was essentially like the place for local home brewers to get supplies, come and trade ideas and all that sort of thing. Our founder, his last name was also White, no relation to Chris White, founder of White Labs, found a certain camaraderie here at Home Brew Mart. Jack's Homebrew Shop and the brewery and all the brewers gave an opportunity to kind of test a whole bunch of stuff out. But really, we're all just crowdsourcing biochemistry. That's really kind of where the relationship started. Aside from only a couple of specialty dry yeast and stuff, we're still exclusively true to White Labs. You guys provide everything really that we need. From California ale yeast, which has become the working horse of like an entire industry, which started as Home Brew Mart ale yeast, to the Kolsch yeast, German ale Kolsch yeast was Home Brew Mart Kolsch yeast. Those were the beginning of some of Ballast Point's now longest standing and most award-winning beers. The Kolsch was what went into our Ballast Point Pale Ale. Still can't call it the old name, but went into Ballast Point Pale Ale, now California Kolsch. So the history is just, it's rich.
Taking a look at all the different yeasts we have here. So what is the most common, question, answer kind of thing you get from your customers?
We're talking right now in the middle of this huge heat wave. And so right now, the primary concern on everybody's mind is how am I supposed to have a decent fermentation without a bunch of crazy off flavors and all this heat. So everybody right now is getting directed toward the Cavite strains, the new ones out of Norway that'll ferment into the 90s cleanly and all that stuff. And we've had great success with the White Labs 518, the Upshog, on one of our beers in our one barrel system back here. We call it St. Olaf's Orchard, patron saint of Norway, and we rotate a fruit and hop pairing in the beer every time we brew it.
Oh, nice.
So it's been a lot of fun. That's been on everybody's mind right now. And otherwise, it's a lot of shades of gray. It's trying to pick the right thing for my finished desire. What do I want the end to be? That's what it's all about. And so every one of these things does something a little bit different, whether it accentuates malt character or doesn't provide much at all, to providing more than half to 80% of the flavor that a beer has in the end. Pretty vital ingredient.
Yeah. That's an easy one. I love the people that come to this industry, the people that I work with, the people that come here as customers. They come here because they love it. They've either gotten tired of the industries that they worked in and come here because they wanted something different and stayed because they love it, or there are people at home that have always wondered how beer was made and come here because they are interested and they get stuck to it like I did. And it's so much easier to come to work having to work alongside people and for people that love what they do.
Love brewing beer. It's one of the greatest jobs in the world to actually work in an industry that you love, because it doesn't really feel like work, I get to talk shop, get to talk beer all day, have customers come in who've never brewed before, and I get to show them the whole store, and I get to educate them all the different hops and the different grains. It's fun, just have this sense of wonder in their eyes.
Why do you come to this shop, man? There's other places to buy. You can buy online. Why are you here?
Well, every time I come in here, anytime I have questions, they're more than happy to answer them. It really started all here. So every time I come here, they give me the books, the knowledge, everything, and help me out in making that dream a reality. I started with extract brewing, and they're helping me to move that from extract to all grain. So one-stop shop of success.
Yeah, that's still hot. And I'll show you how I do that real quick.
Don't worry, unless it comes to safety. Don't worry that you're going to screw up the beer. Don't throw it away until it's actually in your glass. If it's made of glass and it's falling, just let it fall.
Cleaning and sanitation is key for brewing. Making a good beer requires a lot of time. Cleaning and sanitation would always give you a beer at least.
Beer seems like it can be pretty overwhelming, especially all these different varieties out there. One thing I would say is don't need to overcomplicate anything. Sometimes some of the best beers are very simple recipes. One thing I kind of got caught up in the beginning was trying to take like a grain bill or a hop bill and putting too much in it and overcomplicating and thinking, oh, these sound great, I want a bit of that in there as well. You don't need to do that. Keep it nice and simple, and your beer is going to turn out fine. Smash beers and something like that, those are all great beers. 1 grain, 2 grains, 1 hop, 2 hops, you really don't need to do too much more than that. You're going to have a great beer. Just keep it simple and straightforward, and you're going to have something great in the end. Oh, what? Yeah. Are full of quality content.